All right, Jeff, take it away.
So welcome everybody. Everybody appreciates, even on the East Coast or Central Time Zone, appreciates the new time. It's great. But I want to share with everybody to make sure that everybody knew we delivered our first good to an E6's home in Spokane, Washington yesterday. So that's great news. And it even included some time and sit. So that's even better news.
Oh.
So, and it included a reway. That's even better news. So we're testing the full gamut of the product, whether we have the functionality or not. So that's exciting. Really is exciting to see nearly a year's worth, not even a year's worth yet. We haven't. No, I take it back. I think the contract originally signed about a year ago. That we're now doing HHG moves, which is really exciting. The funny thing was, I just got off a call with the services and shared that excitement with them. And what was the first thing out of their mouth? What about claims? and I tried to explain to them the agile process of doing claims and the fact the claims process is currently broken and we don't want to recreate that broken system in the new system. They weren't quite getting that concept across yet, but they finally gave up arguing with me. So anyway, great news, guys. As a team, it's wonderful that we've got, we completed one of the HHG complex moves. The last task on that thing is getting them paid, but we'll work together on that and make that happen because I know that's a delicate, brittle flower right now. So with that, I'll let the demos go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go for it, Michael.
I just wanted to also add, Jeff, that you have some information on the ATO, right?
We do have some movement on the ATO. We realized the current J6 team has no experience with commercial cloud, and we have the DNS control and all this other stuff, that all their risk management framework does not match that structure. And so we have reached out to DISA and the CIO, who really gave us the permission and the authority to go forward with the commercial cloud DNS control, so we can do all this great Route 53 stuff, all this other stuff, Elastic stuff. That we said we would like to use it. The current RMF doesn't apply, just doesn't work. But the J6 doesn't have the authority or the knowledge to change a process that's used across the DoD. So we did reach out to them. We got to one of the DISA's director's key technology people. He reviewed our documentation. He suggested some improvements that sort of map control categories of the old framework to our new organization. And so they're there and will provide generic responses to that category. And he thinks that will fly. So Elliot is updating that information as we speak. We hope to get that done maybe tomorrow and get it back to DISA probably Monday. And if we get their blessing, then I'm going to meet with Transcom third deck on Tuesday, and then we'll start working with if the J6 said, hey, you got permission now to use this new process, we'll work with you, get it completed, and hopefully that gives them the air cover they need to move forward. So that's our hope on the ATO. So, and our plan B is everybody thinks we can get another IATT extension if we need to. My thought is I don't think I'd go for 100. I wouldn't do it 120 days. I would probably do it a shorter period of time, just to keep the time pressure on the ATO. So I'll work with the ES leadership on that and how we want to get it done. But Elliot said it would take a day or two to get the IATT extension. So I'm not going to worry about that till January.
Awesome, thank you. Michael, any other framing thoughts before we jump in?
Just, I think we're getting close on invoicing. I think we have some loose ends to wrap up, and then we need to test it. So I think we're going to see what we have done so far for invoicing today, and maybe talk a little bit about what we need to test or how we think about what a good test would be for that. And then we're also going to look at the HHG PPM flow, which seems like it's close to being done. So with that, I think I will just hand it off to Team Rossi.
Sure. I'm filling in for Jim today because he had a personal matter to attend to. Willow, I took the mic directly from Michael. Did you need to jump back in at all? Okay, cool. So we're going to show you 2 new features with the HHG PPM combo moves. Ron is going to demo that in just a second here. Just so you know what else we have currently in flight, we are working on showing the TSP in the Office application, which I know is a big user feature that we're trying to get out. That work is currently in flight. We should hopefully, knock on wood, have that prepared for the next demo. And we've been doing some behind the scenes work to kind of make things easier to move forward with in the future from a technical perspective. So between that and the fact that we're struck by the plague in the last 2 weeks, Rossi doesn't have as much to demo as I think we did last week. We've also had 2 of our team members in the BAT team rotation in the last 2 weeks. So not as much as we usually have to demo, but I think what we have is still really good. So with that, why don't you take it over, Ron?
Yeah, so let me share my screen. So I'm just going to go through the HHG PPM flow just so we can show what we're currently working on. Oh, that's good stuff. Pay no attention. That was, oh, shoot. 1 second. That was totally intentional. I'm showing how the developers work. And 1 second. And some things that also that I'll be going over are we're kind of in a polishing phase, even though it doesn't seem like it because it just broke. Where we're trying to have like a style guide and stuff like that. So I'll be going over some things where they're probably not consistent, but we're working on making things and styles like a little more consistent and have things for developers to reference so that everything is everything is easier to develop with. So I'm gonna add a PPM to this HHG. And something that's new that we wasn't here 2 weeks ago was we have this header now that shows kind of some images to tell them where they are in the setup, and as well as this timeline feature where it shows what step they are in with regards to the flow. And this is part of what we're working on this week to add little stuff like, okay, this header has this much spacing and we're gonna add that to the style guide. So we're gonna have a source of truth for further development in the future. And this is stuff that we've already seen and we're still in the move setup, so it still hasn't moved. And then this is also still part of the move setup. So I think the images also changed. So if we go to the next page, there's no more image, and then the move setup is at a different phase. And this is something that I guess on the developer side is more important than on the user facing side, but that we'll reuse as well when we start to polish things up like this. Right now, this is an image. And so we were gonna start reusing code for the timeline that we just saw. And so that's one of the things. And then another one is previously when you edited your move, the HHG would be the only thing that's showing. So we edited the PPM. So now you have kind of full range of everything that you can edit when you have an HHG and PPM move. Yeah, any questions?
Hey, Ron, I do have a small question. This is almost personal. The question you sent me about the editing of the dates, is that on the PPM or HHG?
Yeah, that was on the HHG panel.
Okay, great. That's all you have to say right now.
Yeah. All right.
I think that's it from Team Rossi if nobody has any other questions. So we will pass on to A-Team.
Hi. So we are busily working away on invoicing. The pieces are coming together, and instead of showing a couple of individual pieces that we've made progress on, we're choosing to hold off to show you them next demo when they've actually all solidified. And that should be more of the, I might regret this in 2 weeks, but this will be like the grand reveal of it all working together. So instead, what I would like to talk about is the testing. And what I would like to do for testing is we have a few mechanisms that we're going to use. We have some move data that got exported from DPS, and we're able to run comparable moves in our system and look at that data. We are able to send EDIs to US Bank and have them take a look at it. But what I would really like to do, it seems like the gold standard, is trying to get TSPs on staging. And so I'm kind of using this platform while I have everyone's attention to think about if and how we might go about doing that. And we could actually run through a test move with the TSPs on our staging environment, submit the invoice. They could see what it's going to look like before it goes into production. And it can even go to Syncada to their staging environment. So we could test the whole end-to-end flow. And it would be wonderful to have the TSPs buy in on that, because that's how we know that there will be no surprises. So I'm looking to figure out how to make that happen. And that conversation can be done in a follow-up.
So I'll give you, Jenny mentioned one, Mary, at TMM as a possibility, but I've had a great opportunity. Syncada was one of the 3 TSPs that we chose for the pilot, and they did not get them. The move they got was not movable. So they're desperate. Sudeth, excuse me. Sudeth, excuse me. Not Syncada. Sudeth, and I just talked to Karen, or emailed to Karen today. She's looking for a move. So she would be an ideal candidate to do test moves in the staging environment. So after this thing, I'll reach out to Alexi and get you guys connected and see what we need to do to make that happen. But I think we got a couple candidates that'll make it happen for you.
Great, thank you. The other thing that I thought was interesting to talk about is something called the fuel surcharge that probably everyone has heard about. We have finally found the formula. We had this on our to-do list for several months. It wasn't a priority for the majority of those months up until the past 2 weeks, but it was an interesting lesson in finding out the domain knowledge of this product. We found several new PDFs, the TR12, which was a new one for me. The 400NG references it, but it didn't give us the formula. We needed to know how to actually implement it. And it wasn't until we finally got a hold of Danny Martinez that we were able to figure out what the exact formula is. And it was very simple, actually. There is a website published. This is what we learned. And if this doesn't sound correct, please let me know. A website that is published on SDDC has per month the diesel charges and I don't know what you would call it, but it says it's the $2.50 baseline, and this is a percentage that we need. And ultimately, we just multiply the line haul and eventually the sit line haul by that percentage in order to figure out the fuel surcharge. So we're working on getting that source data imported into our database now, and then we're going to be able to add the fuel surcharge to the invoice, which is something that we didn't have previously. Does that sound right to everybody? Or are you biting your nails? Cool. Okay, so that's all stuff that we're working on. This I'll pass it over to Aaron. We're doing a bit of this, and TTV is also doing a bit of the invoicing, and it's Danny Matthews. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yeah, that's it for now.
Hey everybody. So I do have a little bit to show you. We are, Team Vogue has been working on, we're close to wrapping up the work we need to do to show an invoice once it's been submitted. That's not quite there. And Alexi and I talked this morning and decided that while I had originally thought that my New Year's resolution would be never to show things that weren't in staging, that we should go ahead and do that this week. So we have a little bit less to show than maybe we did last time because we're trying to be better about only things that are done instead of done, if you catch my drift, right? So that's close. The other work that's kind of in progress that we're hoping to wrap up in the next few days is work in response to the HackerOne penetration testing that's been going on. They found some issues with cross-site forgeries that we are still going through and making sure that our code changes to address those are adequate. So hopefully that's not a great thing, an easy thing to demo, but we're trying to make the system more secure than it is now. The one piece I do want to demo is an edge case that we noticed when we were working on things. And it's pretty simply not that screen, or that screen, but this screen. All right. So once we've done work already so that when the TSP delivers the move, all of the approved pre-approval requests show up in invoicing. But that led to this case where you could have requests that hadn't been approved yet, let's say a third-party service, because maybe they hadn't gotten their invoice yet, so they don't have quite the price on it for the delivery. That we were still allowing the office to approve even though the shipment's been delivered. And we decided rather than like not allowing for approval at this point, that we would allow for approval here. And this is what happens when you do the game. My apologies.
Demonstrating security again.
Yeah, we time out if you haven't been looking at the system for a while. So now we have to see if I can remember which one I was looking at. Oh, this one. So when it used to be, if this case, you could approve it after it was delivered, but they weren't going into the invoice, and that felt wrong. So we've done a little bit of work to make it so that when I approve that, this is going to be the demo where nothing goes well. So that should have shown up down here. If y'all want to watch how the sausage is made, I will try to figure out what's going wrong. Or not. It's totally up to you.
Hey, this is Rose. While you're doing that, I know that personal property, they are looking at the demo in the Say auditorium. I'm not sure if they have volume, but if they're looking at that base quantity, that is the number of requests, is it not? That says 50, 23, stuff like that, right? Correct?
Honestly, some of the work that we're going to be doing up in the future is going to make it much clearer what those base quantities mean. But let me just create it. And this looks like I found a hole in our data where we don't really know how to calculate the cost of a third-party service request. So yay for testing with live data in front of our customer. So let me just let's just say that there was another packing crate here. And I'm sorry, if someone else has a better answer for Rose on that question, please speak now. Maybe Patrick or Alexi know how that works. Okay. So similar situation, it hasn't been approved yet. I should be able to approve it at this point. and it should roll into the invoicing. That's just in case the TSP delivers thing marks the move as delivered before the office has had a chance to approve everything. It will give them a chance to make sure we don't miss some of the cost. So Rose, your question was about numbers in—
Yeah, the base quantity. The base quantity, as it was explained to me last time, that is the number of requests. So for B, they request 23 reways.
Okay, so this is what happens when you let an engineer create data. Right? That really is not really a correct value. It should be.
I understand. I just wanted just to make sure that, hey, that they understand that really, in all reality, that would probably only be about one request for a reway, just one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that we will eventually have a unit listed on that base quantity because they can be different. My understanding different for different types of items.
Yeah, we're working on features right now, or I'm working on defining features for each different accessorial because they each have a different kind of, or not, there are different kinds of accessorials with different types of units. And so we'll have that'll be much more robust like in the coming weeks.
Yeah, they have different units of measure. Some are done by build weight, some are done by quantity, some are done by hours and stuff like that.
That's good feedback. One of the things that I would like my team to do in prep for demo is to find more realistic looking data so that we're demoing things that make sense, not just, and that might help us create better validation around the pages as well. So that's a task that I was going to add into backlog for what we're going to do in the future. This is pretty much the main thing I was going to show here. It looks like there's some tasks. This one says for me. Yeah. So I think that, like Alexa said, we're hoping to have invoicing wrapped up with a nice bow for our next demo, which is, I guess it's scheduled for Thursday after Christmas.
Christmas present.
That's not really going to be when we do the demo, though. I don't know.
Yeah, let's talk about that out of band.
Right.
Okay.
You'll get a slight. It'll be before the 12th day of Christmas that you'll get a demo.
Vacation.
Right. So does anybody have any questions?
I think I have an answer for Rose, which is that there are certain items, I think reway is one of them, that are priced as a flat rate. And in that case, the quantity is basically ignored and the flat rate is applied. The quantity field is kind of a consequence of our initial implementation of it. We kind of glossed over some flat rate quantity doesn't really matter, but everything has a quantity you can enter. If it's a flat rate, it's basically not used.
So I believe sliced bread testing's after me.
Yeah, it's actually, I was going to jump in and say that's a nice segue because one of the things we're going to show today are some of the new designs for the second round of accessorials. So we'll touch on some of that today, Rose. Yeah, so let's see. So we've got a number of things going on. One of the big things is that one of our team members, Jim, is out on the East Coast this week visiting GIPSO Northeast and GIPSO Mid-Atlantic, and also going to a number of PIPOs. So meeting with counselors at both the GIPSOs and the PIPOs, and also meeting with some service members while he's at the PIPOs. So he's doing a whole bunch of testing on PPM expansion and SIT and accessorials round 2. So we'll be getting a lot of interesting insights next week once he's back. In the meantime, we've been working on SIT, which we're going to look at today. And we've been also working a bit on invoicing round 2 and queues and doing some planning for work that's coming up further out, like a golden ticket funnel and TSP UI walkthrough. So lots going on. So for today, what we're going to look at are some wireframes for SIT and accessorials round 2. And I'm going to hand it off to Kim to walk through those. Hi, all. So let's actually start with pre-approval, since that makes a nice segue from Rose's question. So I am going to share my screen. So this is further work on accessorials. And here the TSP has just entered their pre-move survey, and they have a bunch of pre-approval requests that they need to make. So they'll go add a request, and then this is behavior that's already in the product right now. There's also a pull down arrow, but we don't have that in our wireframe. And so they would pick a service code, and you'll notice what's different in this wireframe from how it works now is that instead of that single base quantity field, which has all the notes about what you're supposed to enter, you're getting fields now that are actually specific to that service code. And that's going to keep things a lot cleaner on the calculation side and help make sure that the military is getting the right information from the TSPs when they ask for pre-approvals. And so, as Michael mentioned, we're going through all the different service codes, and actually Rose and Danny Matthews went through that, did a lot of prep work for us on that, and we went through and nailed down some last few details on that yesterday. So we're going to see different sets of fields and different instructions in here. But so let's say that this is a deer head. It's mounted, and we're going to put in the length and the width. And now this is a design wireframe, so none of this data is real. You're not going to see the actual numbers I'm typing in reflected, but I'm showing you what a TSP would actually be doing. So I would put that in and put in my dimensions, and these are the numbers that are going to be required both by the PIPSO to approve this accessorial, but then later by the invoicing engine to calculate how much they're going to pay on this 105B. So I'm going to save. I'm going to add a bunch more. I'm not going to walk through that, but when I'm done, I'm going to save and close. And so we just kind of faked it that the TSP just added a bunch of things. And I want to show you some of the different fields. So for the crating, we saw dimensions for the crate. Here is a third-party service. I'm going to click the edit button. And you'll see that the center column is different. It has different fields that are actually appropriate to a third-party service. So there's a description, and we're asking for a reason, and we're asking for a not to exceed estimate. And finally, there's a field for later when they actually have performed the service and get the invoice, they can come in and put what the actual amount was. And let's see if there's anything else I can open up here. So here's a shuttle service. So we want the total mileage and the reason, and then we're actually going to ask for some address fields. We need to add that. So Rose, the different service codes we're gonna ask for the different quantities. So for like reweigh, it would be a flat rate, so we wouldn't even need a quantity for that. So let's see. So the next thing in this sequence, which I think we've shown before, is that the office would get notified. There are some pre-approvals waiting, and they could go down and they'd see all these requests and be able to, oh, sorry, I need to reload this. See that there are all these requests and be able to approve them. Or in the case of a shuttle service, everyone loves to deny shuttle services. So we'll just deny, but we're going to ask for a reason. And then later down the line, in future releases of this feature, we'll have the ability for the office to inquire. So it's kind of a middle option where, oh, here's this third-party service, but you didn't give us an estimate. So we're going to say, please upload estimate and send that. So it hasn't been denied. It hasn't been approved. But then the TSP would be able to see what the office's response is. So here's an inquiry on the third-party service. Please upload an estimate.
So now as the TSP, I could go in and we'll pretend I hadn't typed that yet. So I'll go, it's $300. I'm gonna upload a document and then I'm gonna tell them a note. So uploaded estimate. And then that goes back to the office. So there can be a back and forth. And I think that's everything that's new. Oh, the one other stage that I need to show is that as this, these pre-approvals move through the system and eventually get billed, then eventually we'll see the updated status here. So now it's been moved. We can't see this on this wireframe, but it's been moved into the invoicing panel. And then when it gets actually invoiced, then that status will change. So that's what's going on with pre-approvals. Any questions before we move to SIT? And again, just to be clear, this whole full-featured back and forth thing isn't going to happen in the next release, but we are going to be moving towards these customized data fields for the different service types.
Yeah, I think the next milestone for this particular feature is just to make sure that the data is correct and that the calculations are hooked up to the correct data for each accessorial, so we have better pricing and better information that the office can use to approve them.
Okay. So let's move on to SIT. Close these up. All right. So we now have sketched out a basic flow for the TSP requesting SIT, the office approving it, the TSP putting the shipment in, getting a control number, and then delivering out of SIT. So let's walk through that. So in this wireframe, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong screen. Hang on. There we go. Okay, so the shipment at this point is inbound, and they can't direct deliver, so I'm the TSP now. I'm gonna go down to storage and transit. I see that they have an SIT entitlement of 90 days, and I'm gonna request approval for SIT. And this is gonna be destination SIT. This is the weight of the whole shipment, because the first release of this isn't going to have partials. And this is today. I think it's actually, I think it'll go in today. And I'm going to say, well, the service member delayed, and they can't take delivery till next week. And then I'm going to look at my list of approved warehouses, and I'm going to put in the warehouse number that I want to use. It's Hercules Hauling. It's somewhere in some town in California. It's some zip code. And then I'm going to send my request to the office. So now I can see that my request is pending. The data that I put in is reflected here, and the warehouse is showing up. So then the office, just like with the pre-approval request, the office is going to see that they have SIT requested right here. And if they scroll down to the SIT panel, they can see that there's this request pending with the details the TSP put in. And just like with pre-approvals, they can approve, inquire, or deny. And again, acquire is probably going to come much later, but we'll just have them approve it. And the office will have the option to change the authorized start date. So if, for example, you guys decide that, no, it can't start to the RDD, they could go back up here, find the RDD, and say, actually, you know, it can't start till the 22nd. And they would approve that. So now we see that SIT has been approved, and we see what the approved start date is. Back to the TSP view. The TSP finds out that their SIT request was approved. And indeed, the service member has not actually shown up. So they're going to place the shipment into SIT. They're going to put the actual start date, the weight in, and make sure that if they needed to switch to a different warehouse at this point, that would be fine. So they're just basically going to place it into sit, and now they get a sit control number. And then the last step is that they are going to deliver the shipment out of sit when the service member is available. And they're actually going to be able to do it from a button up here. We just haven't gotten to that yet. So I'll just show it from down here. It's pretty straightforward, just like delivering directly. You're going to put your delivery date. And if there wasn't an address yet, then they'll go ahead and enter an address. If there's an additional one, they'll enter that. And they're done. And that should work. But they'll also be able to see down here how many days were used, when it expires, and so on. And then the entitlement, now that they've used 5 days, they actually only have 85 days remaining. And so that's kind of where we are with storage in transit. Any questions?
You explained it all perfectly.
All right, awesome. Back to Jenny. Are we done? Okay, that's it for design. Let's stop sharing my screen.
All right. Anyone from Transcom have any thoughts on the overall work that we've been up to?
Very good.
Hooray! Good. All right. Well, oh yeah, Michael, please do. That sounds awesome.
Hey everybody, I just want to do a quick demo of a product roadmap that I've been working on as a result of our meetings last week with Transcom. So we met for a couple of days and went over sort of some high level directional stuff, and then we started talking about our near-term priorities and our longer-term priorities. And based on that, I have created a roadmap that I can show people now. And we're still kind of working on filling it out and making sure it's accurate, but this will be sort of a working roadmap for the group for the near term. Let's see. So here we have kind of our themes that we discussed in the workshop, which includes, you know, SIT and HHG PPM and payments and, you know, things that we think are priorities. The roadmap itself is organized around the users and what they're trying to do. So at the very top, you'll see these pink boxes, which represents each of the main user groups. So there's a service member section, a TSP section, and an office section. And then there's a super user, which doesn't exist yet, but we talked about at the workshop. And then there's like a system, just a system user, and that's just sort of back end system things that need to happen. But, you know, for purposes of Transcom, like you could just focus on the service member, TSP, office, and super user. These sort of salmon colored things are what the user's trying to do in general terms. And then these orange boxes is the actual user journey through a move, right? So the service member must create an account. They must be able to access their account. They must be able to schedule moves. There's some pre-move stuff that happens. There's stuff that happens around pickup and transit and delivery. There's SIT, and then there's post-move activities. And so all the features are sort of in these columns, and they're rolling up to a part of the user journey that's specified in these orange boxes. These first two sections that are sort of demarcated by these horizontal lines, this is where we've been. So this top section is Coal Scuttle, and the gray boxes are what we've already built. This second section is Bamford and Martin. The gray boxes are what we've already built, and the blue boxes are what we're working on right now. And then the next phase of work is specified here. And this is all, we have to come up with a name for it, but this section here is basically what we discussed as our near-term priorities at the meeting last week, and how all of those priorities map up to the different users and what the different user tasks are. And this stuff at the bottom is things we decided to push off until after March 15th, which is our next sort of milestone check-in. And the purple boxes are the ones that need more kind of discussion and breaking out. And the yellow boxes are things we know we have to do, we're just not gonna do them yet. Does that make sense to everybody? So I've shared this with Jeff and Jill. I'm working with the design team to make sure all the boxes make sense and are in the right order. I've shared it with the engineers. So I will probably keep using it when we talk about, you know, our work, so that we can start to look at this as kind of the source of truth for where we're going. And that's it.
I'm so excited about it. I think everyone is. Okay. Any questions or comments just in general before we close up?
Happy holidays to everybody.
Yeah. Alexi, was that a wave or a?
Yay!
All right. Muppet Flails. Let's do any calendar scheduling stuff that we need to around the upcoming, that some people take as holidays, in Slack rather than doing it in a conference call. But please pay a little bit of extra attention to that. We also had a recent major shift in our calendar. While this demo will happen at the same time, please notice that things have moved around, and I posted stuff around that. So if you have any questions, let me know. And we all get 17 minutes of our lives back. We'll see you all soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you all.